How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sip Talk. I am here with a producer for ESPN's afternoon show, Highly Questionable, as well as a frequent contributor on the Batard and Friends podcast network. Charlie Kravitz joins the show. Mr. Krabs, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Let's jump right into it because I'm very curious to know how you got into the sports media industry, and was this something that you planned on getting into right after college, or just kind of stumble upon it?
So I can go into pretty big depth on this, but it's a slog to get into the sports media business. Like, I really wanted to work in sports when I was in college. I did not have the internship experience, so I thought I would make up for it. I wrote a capstone, basically like a thesis equivalent history paper on baseball in the Dominican Republic and Cuba. And I was like, this will be great. I'll spend a year studying this. This can be a way to get my foot in the door. But I applied for jobs out of college with sports agencies, teams, but no media companies, and didn't get a sniff. I interviewed with the Astros, interviewed with the Braves, nothing. And so I took a job as a private investigator for my first year out of college. I made it 10 months. And I actually had a friend who was producing See or No for Highly Questionable. And he was leaving to take a writing fellowship. And he sort of submitted me as an intern candidate as a 23-year-old. And so that was like huge that I got my foot in the door and could sort of start my career over after like a little weird false start there.
If you could go back, would you be would you be a private investigator again? Or
honestly, it was a really good thing to learn because it's not like, look, I wasn't boots on the ground. I wasn't chasing bad guys. But what I was doing is like, you do a ton of research for law firms. So you get really good at the internet, and being good at the internet is a skill that, is essential certainly for sports media, but probably for anything. And I'm 30. I'm slightly too old to be good at the internet without like a year of like diving into it and training. So I like, very useful skill, weird job, useful skill though.
All right, so let's talk a little Highly Questionable, and let's kind of go back a few years when it used to be like a very set cast of Dan Le Batard, his father, Poppy, and Bomani Jones. But when Bomani Jones left to do High Noon, that kind of third chair became a kind of cycling role of different personalities. So from a production standpoint, was it challenging to kind of have to like maneuver and kind of potentially write for different personalities, or was it just a very relaxed environment and you can kind of get an idea of like who's going to thrive off what? Like, what can I do to make like a Katie Nolan click compared to like a Pablo Torre?
Yeah, absolutely. Topic selection. I mean, there's certain things you have to do on every show, no matter who's on. Like, there are topics that just pop and you're like, all right, that needs to lead our show. That's really important that we have anyone who's hosting talk about it. But after that, after the big headlines, I mean, we're such a personality and relationship driven show where like we sort of live off people being comfortable and talking about what they're interested in. Like a rundown of topics on any given day will fluctuate totally depending on hosts. And we got into this rhythm with Dan and Bomani and Poppy where we knew like, all right, we're going to do 5 headlines. We'll do 3 D questions, a couple See or No's, boom. And we knew what they liked. And then one day it was just completely different because Bomani is like, he's so adept and nimble at talking about any topic that it wasn't even like we didn't even have to consult Dan and Bo on topics for the show. It was just like, all right, here's news that we find interesting. Both those guys are encyclopedias of sports, pop culture, music, humor. We can give them anything and they're going to be interested in talk about it. And then you realize that while everyone who's in our rotation is a special talent, people are specialized in different things. Like, I mean, you have like someone like Mina Kimes, so I'm like, I want to get her football topics. You have someone like Pablo, I'm like, give me some NBA stuff. And it's not like they aren't good on if you flipped or flop that, but you just want to feed them the spot where they're going to score easily. And for each of them, each talent is different, a little bit different.
And so let's kind of go to the present with COVID-19. obviously very challenging for anyone in any industry. And this show in particular, like you're not in your normal studio. There wasn't a whole lot of sports going on for the longest time. How did the show have to adapt to COVID-19?
I mean, we changed everything. I mean, obviously, there the things like filming it out of a studio, having high res cameras, and TV crews, makeup, a director. Those things were all gone. So we were like, we're gonna have to pare down the visuals. We're gonna change it. We're filming it off a laptop. We use a Surface, so like everyone is just talking to their laptop. We ordered people mics and ring lights. Um, but those are sort of the easy shifts. Those were the shifts where it was like we need to just get the proper equipment and we can get the show on the air. But the more difficult decisions and the one that required more thought was we sort of sat down as a team and we're like, we're going to be online only for a couple months. Like we're figuring out how to get back to TV. We need to make a show that keeps up with the sense of humor of the internet rather than linear television. Because we can put it out faster. If we film a topic, we can put it out 30 minutes after we film it rather than having to wait the 3 hours between taping and airtime. So that's how we got those weird sort of segments where it'd be like a hypothetical multiverse question or where we troll Katie about Tom Brady, knowing that we could beat the news cycle and get it out before a lot of TV shows did. And I actually think it's been really positive for the show because like it's hard in TV to have the sense of humor of the internet. It's hard to keep up. And we got like an opportunity for 3 months to really experiment with it and throw the format of the show out of the window. And that was great because like now it's like you have 6 topics in the show. We can do them however we want. We don't have to fit into the format that we've been doing for 8 years. And it's evolving. You'll see Dan do like an 8-minute A block topic or an 8-minute headline talking about, what's going on in the NBA or the NFL or COVID or whatever. And then dedicate less to the show for C or no, or vice versa, given on any given day. So it's just made us much more flexible.
And kind of going along with that from like a topic standpoint, because there's been a lot of serious stuff going on, a global pandemic.
Yeah.
There was the death of George Floyd, and you've had the recent events in Wisconsin. So when you're planning a show that's known for being funny and hijinks, are there ever days or conversations you have to have and say, look, there might not be room for any of our normal hijinks today, even though the
Yeah,
show is it's comedy usually.
definitely. And like, yeah, there have been several times in the past 6 months where we've dropped my producer voice asking an excited question or the ba 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 and not had the funny stuff on at the front or had do you question or see or no. And we've just been like, look, Dan, Dominique, Mina, Pablo, Bomani, Katie, you guys are like some of the smartest people and some of the most courageous people at ESPN who are the people I want to handle issues that, sort of veer into politics, veer into everyday life, and are affecting people in and out of sports. We're just going to let you cook. Like we want you to have an open environment to talk about these topics in ways that you think are insightful and are going to help people learn from them. Because like, yeah, I mean, HQ is supposed to be a funny show and we've always tried to, sprinkle in content during this that's going to make people happy. Whether it's social clips or the last shake or, stuff like that. But if there's a day where the news and what our panelists want to talk about is heavier, like I trust Dan more than anyone, really Dan and Bomani, but Dan and Bomani and everyone more than anyone else at the network to, be really thoughtful and bring insight to our viewers.
I think that's one of the reasons why I love Highly Questionable. I love the Dan Le Batard Show with Stu Gatz because I'm a political science major and I also love sports. So to me, the two things just fit naturally together. So when Dan has an essay or just listening to Bomani talk and being so knowledgeable, like I love that. But obviously there's a lot of people who don't love that. There is the keep politics and sports kind of separate crowd. Do you ever feel that kind of pressure either from social media or from just other places where a lot of people think that this idea of sports is a safe space to escape what's ever going on in the news, but you still have a a journalistic or production responsibility to like make sure that we're creating the right content that's knowledgeable and informative.
Yeah, I mean that's a battle that like I've had to wage with myself and with our team and with our office for years, because like politically, I grew up in Washington D.C. I grew up around politics. I understand sort of the cross access of sports, pop culture, politics. It's all in one. The way that we digest media, everything's together. Like I don't turn on Twitter or Instagram and log on and like it's not just filtered to sports. But I also understand that we're making a show for our viewers, and not all of our viewers want that same thing. So I need the show to be accessible to everyone. But over the last 6 months, I think that there's been enough crossover. It's been so intertwined, whether or not it's the college football season being in jeopardy because of COVID, whether or not it's, you know, the NBA protest last week in honor of Jacob Blake. And it's like, to me at this point, it's not about balancing the show. It's not about, you know, balancing the show for everyone. It's about being accurate. And that's always a tough thing, because like there's in Twitter right now and in social media, there's so much whataboutism. There's so much you got to hear both sides. But to me, it's like we're at such a tipping point in our country, and like being accurate rather than balanced is so important, because people on the other side aren't being accurate or balanced. And so someone's got to stand there. And I trust Dan. I trust Bomani. I trust Dominique. I trust Mita to do that more than anyone.
Very well said. Thank you, Charlie. Let's get into some fun stuff now.
Yeah, sorry. I feel like I'm just boring you with long soliloquies about this stuff.
Oh no, you kidding me? I love this. Like I said, I'm poli-sci and sports. They're my two favorite things. Like I want to have you back on for a little politics segment, which is another thing that we do.
I'm here for it.
Oh, love it. All right. But yeah, absolutely love that. But when we get into some fun stuff now, let's talk a little Mystery Crate. My favorite podcast on the Batard and Friends podcast network, because I never know what I'm going to get. It's such a mystery crate. I don't like, you guys created a segment called ESPN's #1 challenge podcast. I don't even watch the challenge. I tried to get into it. Wasn't really for me, but still enjoyed it. But there's also times where you, Billy Gill, who's probably my favorite member of the shipping container, Charlie Hume, and Lorenzo will just record for like an hour and just talk about random shit. And I wish that I had the confidence to do that on any media network. So I was wondering, when you guys sit down, is there like any preparation, or do you guys just hop on a Zoom and say, how's it going? What do you want to talk about today?
So funny you should ask that. So yeah, so there's every single podcast, I will make an outline. We'll have a shared Google Doc, and I'll have written like notes through all of it. The second we sit down, if we bring Lorenzo in, there's a saying Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Lorenzo is the Mike Tyson in this situation, because he sits down and he just puts a grenade in the middle of any plan. He's awesome. Like the thing is, like he's his character on air. He's the most popular guy in our office, hands down. He's like a beloved character, and he wreaks havoc when it's the four of us. And me, Billy, and Charlie have all worked with Lorenzo very intimately over the last 5 years or so. So it's like that's just our normal conversation with a microphone in front of us, to be completely honest.
So here's why I personally love Lorenzo. It wasn't until I think the first or second time you guys did a bit called the Lorenzone, where it was just him talking about like random shit for an hour. And I was listening to it and I realized, oh wait, I'm the Lorenzo of my friend group. Like if there's going to be anyone in our friend group to just hop on a Zoom or in a conversation, say, hey, I'm playing the jaw harp, like that would be me. So anytime I listen to that and Lorenzo's just like, guys, I have this great new thing, I'm like, oh no, that's me. Like that is me just wrecking havoc in my friend group.
It's amazing. Dude, he is 100% all in on everything he does. Every time, no matter what. So it's like, it's always ridiculous. He's somehow trapped in the 1950s. 70 years later, but he's hysterical. And so, yeah, getting him. So like we started doing that podcast and Zoe would like send me, Billy, Eliz, and Charlie little texts about the podcast being like, I love this segment. I love this segment. And we'd have our side group with, Eliz, Billy, and Charlie. I'd be like, guys, we got to have Zoe on. Zoe wants to be on so bad. And we brought him in and we recorded a Lorenzo and we sat there for 2.5 hours and none of it was usable. We tossed the podcast. Billy's like the best editor. Like Billy, like sometimes we just give him slop and Billy will put out something that's funny. The first time we tried to the Lorenzo, it just didn't work. So then we took like a 3-month hiatus from it and it's like slowly brought him back in. And we bring him in at random times too because it drives Charlie Hume nuts. Like you can hear him sigh through the podcast. It's the best. It's like you have the ultimate weapon of chaos on your side that can just derail Charlie.
Oh, that is great. And doesn't it, I think one of your more recent episodes on the Mystery Crate was you pitching ideas for new podcasts, and one of them was my favorite. Was called Bingzo, which was Lorenzone Bingo, which I still really want to be a thing because I want to play along at home.
That would be so doable. Like if say I was like sitting down in the Zoom with him and I was like, hey, Lorenzo, do you want to talk about the Miami Dolphins? He would give you 30 minutes on the Dolphins. Hey, man, do you want to talk about, Back to the Future? He'd give you an hour on Back to the Future. You could steer him in any direction you wanted if you made the board. So it could be coming anytime soon.
So the one of the newer themes on the shows you're making right now is B. Six. I think it's 6 Bs.
6 Bs.
Baseball, basketball, Big Brother. And I would say out of those 3, my favorite is baseball. I'm more of a Survivor guy than Big Brother, but so definitely love baseball. So Charlie Kravitz, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because I know you also kind of like your 90s, mid-2000s baseball.
Mm-hmm.
If you could give me a starting rotation of just classic, like early 2000s baseball pitchers, who would you put in there?
So I'm gonna cheat off the top, and because there's one guy that everyone has in, and I know it's like chalk, but Pedro is the most entertaining pitcher of all time, in my opinion, hands down. I'm trying to think. Again, being a DMV guy, I was a huge Mike Mussina when he was on the Orioles. I grew up playing baseball, and the fact that he had that absurd pickoff move and look between his legs and his windup, I was hugely in on that. As far as relief pitchers, I'm just trying to think of who exactly I'd want to give you.
We've had Keith Falk on this show, so
you've had Keith Falk on the show.
We have had Keith Falk on the show, and we made sure that we didn't talk any baseball, and we got like 50 minutes until one of my co-hosts blew it.
Keith Falk. So my high school baseball coach was the bullpen catcher for those Red Sox teams. And so he gave us a bunch of Keith Falk, Trot Nixon, sort of meathead early 2000s baseball players.
Love me some Trot
stories.
Nixon.
Yeah. I'm trying to think because the problem is I don't want to give you chalk guys from just the Red Sox and Yankees early 2000s rivalry.
Maybe I can help you out because I'm not joking. I just got my PlayStation 2 hooked up to my TV because I love my PS2. And so I've been jamming to some MVP 05 recently.
Okay.
So I got a good dynasty mode going. I just signed Barry Zito.
Oh my God. I love those A's teams. For the record, no team in history has had cooler gear than those A's uniforms with the stirrups and the white cleats. Like Eric Chavez and Miguel Tejada look like superheroes. So yeah, I would definitely. God, that's so great. But I need someone like slightly shittier on my team. First of all, I'm just gonna take Cliff Lee, because he was such a crafty lefty. I know that's a little bit later, but I was just trying to think of people who I really liked. And can I take someone who's like not that good and also a little bit later? But
go for it. This is Sip Talk. We love all things baseball.
Can I take Ubaldo Jimenez and someone just throwing 102 with a really weird delivery to round out my starting rotation?
Yeah, we can give you a little like 07, 08 Ubaldo.
Yeah, and I obviously like the other one that's chalk, who is like could strike you out on TV with his changeup, is Johan. But but I'm not going to take him. That's too easy.
In my MVP 05 dynasty, I have Kerry Wood in my rotation.
Ooh. I mean, I don't think that like I need to go back and watch some early 2000s Cubs games because I don't think it's like there should be a 30 for 30 about Mark Pryor and Kerry Wood. How you had two guys who
Oh,
were the
Mark
best,
Pryor.
like, who were like the two most talented pitchers in baseball in the early 20s, and neither one of them made it to 25.
I'm liking that rotation. I'm trying to think of just like I'm from Boston, but I'm not like a huge Red Sox fan. Like I really just love baseball in general. I also love the Dodgers. I love Derek Lowe.
I was going to Derek Lowe with the two-seam fastball was
Oh yeah.
unbelievable. There were some dudes who I really enjoyed in the early 2000s who just like threw gas. It was before everyone was like a polished pitcher. I feel like if you look at 2020, all of these guys have 3 or 4 out pitches, even relief pitchers, and they all throw 100. So it's nice to have to go back to like the early 2000s, late 90s when it was just fastball changeup for a relief pitcher and like fastball curveball changeup for starters.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like Brandon League only had like 2 pitches.
Oh yeah. There's so many of those guys back in the day.
Are you also a big 2000s basketball guy? Going to check off another BB here.
Yes. Basketball is like my one true love, despite the fact that I am, a 5'11" white Jewish guy who can't jump over a phone book. Love basketball.
It's okay. I'm a 6'4" white guy who can't touch the rim, so it's okay. We all have our flaws.
Yeah.
If we're talking some mid 2000s basketball, because I wasn't like really watching the NBA at that time when I was still a kid, but like I had backyard basketball. I had some NBA live. And so I would just cheat on my dynasty modes and just have T-Mac, Dirk, and Sean Marion on my team. And it's like, let's just ball up right now. Who are some of your guys you loved watching?
Yeah, I mean, again, so I'm this one I'm going to give you more chalk because basketball star driven league I have to. Huge Iverson guy. Huge Iverson was like the draw that brought me to basketball because I was a 90s DC kid. He showed up at Georgetown and I could go to the games with my dad and I was like 6 and 7 years old and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Huge Iverson guy. Then the most fun I've ever had as a basketball fan is Gilbert Arenas when he was on the Wizards. Obviously, he has engaged in some nefarious behavior, but
he's a U of A graduate. Bear down.
U of A graduate,
Agent Zero.
The first guy who just threw up bombs from 35 feet. Loved him. The fan favorite for everyone was Vince Carter. I'll make him my 6th man in this discussion because I want to, fill it up with some weird guys. Loved early Antonio McDyess, Nuggets McDyess. Just a true power forward. It was before everyone could shoot, which is really nice. I'm going to throw in some Andre Kirilenko there.
Wow.
I'm really I'm really entranced by big guys that can pass. So give me a 6'9" guy who just, doesn't want to even look at the rim and is filling it up in transition and with assists.
I've not heard that name in so long.
It's total throwback. And then for my center, you know what? I'm going to take Ben Wallace. I'm going to give me the 6'7" guy who guarded Shaq in the finals.
That's great. All right, Charlie, before I let you go, what can you tell us about some of the things you're doing right now on Highly Questionable or the Mystery Crate? What are some things that fans or even new listeners can look forward to?
Trying to figure out some new social segments to bring you guys because we've had some fun stuff where we played Jeopardy. We had the Poppy documentary. We're looking to do more taped stuff that can break the format of the show and let you know everyone who's on the show in a different way. I think there's something to be said about making it a little bit more of a reality TV show, so you get to know these guys on a personal level. And so, yeah, that's what I'm working on now. As far as the Mystery Crate, it's going to be chaos every week. I'm going to sit down or recording tomorrow with Billy, Charlie, Lorenzo, Allison, Eliz, and I have no idea where it's going to go. We have no plan.
I can't wait. Charlie Kravitz, Mr. Krabs, thank you so much for coming on. It was great having you.
Of course. Let me know, and I'll be on whenever you want.